So this was my very first Justin Bieber album that I've ever heard in my entire life, right? I've obviously heard the radio slaps, those are bangers, but for some reason, I just never checked out a Bieber album until this album Swag came out. Now, for this one, it was very interesting the way it released because he released the album with no rollout. Just the night before, he was like, hey, got an album, here's a couple billboards, here y'all go. Which is something I do want to talk about. Some of the label games in the music industry that not a lot of people really know. And I kind of want to highlight this because especially given Bieber's financial situation right now and his whole like debacle with his old manager, I feel like it's very well worth noting because you can see that the Clips dropped an album, right? There was no other major releases at the time that was going to release. So they were in line for a #1 album. And they were signed under Def Jam, which is the same label that Bieber signed under. And they had a little bit of a falling out. They went to another label, right? Or maybe they went independent and have signed a distribution deal to release their album. And I feel like Def Jam tried to step on their release with Bieber, who they have under their belt. And Bieber, not in the greatest financial kind of, state. I mean, 26 million, any million, if you're in debt, any million, you're going to want to drop some music, maybe go on tour. So Bieber's obviously not going to fight it, and he's going to drop it. I feel like those were kind of like label games, but that's neither here or there. That's another topic. I just thought that was very interesting, the fact that he would drop an album with no rollout, given his financial and kind of his whole superstardom. Like, I would imagine Bieber would want to roll out, create some anticipation for this album. But again, he's a superstar. He doesn't really need any rollout, but I'm just a regular guy in front of a microphone. Now talking about the album, right? So I think this is because this is my first time listening to a Bieber album. I think it actually helped my listening experience because I see the opinion on the internet. A lot of people are, I wouldn't say a lot of people, but there's a decent amount of people that don't really like this album. And I've seen the stands of Justin Bieber hate those people for not liking this album, which I don't think is really fair. I feel like some of my favorite artists have dropped albums that I'm not a fan of. That does not mean that I'm not a fan of them. But this album right here, right? I could tell you, when this is listed under pop, I thought this was going to be a bright production, very kind of singy-songy, poppy kind of feel from what I've heard from him in the radio. And this album is not that, man. I was very surprised, especially in the beginning. The song starts with All I Can Take. A very repetitive song, and I should say a very repetitive album, but in a good way, because it allows you to get lost within the instrumental, and majority of the songs are very down-tempo. There's not a lot of upbeat to it, which I love R&B music. So it kind of felt like the fusion of pop and R&B on here, a little bit more soul, and some of the like southern folk kind of instrumentation within this album that I really enjoyed. So there's a lot of memorable hooks here. Since I heard this album, all I can say throughout the day is all I can take. And I think the album starts off very strong. You got All I Can Take, Daisy's Yukon, which Yukon seems to be a very like fan favorite. And I think the instrumentals of those make me feel like I'm running through a grass field and like this warm, bright sun, not too hot, but not too cold, just enough to feel it on your skin, but not sweat. And it makes me feel like just a blissful landscape. And I enjoy that feeling because those are songs where you can close your eyes to and just nod your head and get lost in the music. So I thought the album started off phenomenal from track 1 all the way to track 6 was definitely that's a very strong run in my opinion. Where this album kind of takes a turn though for me is track 7 onward. So I do like the song with Gunna. I wouldn't say it's my favorite song. I thought he's one of my favorite current rappers to listen to. And when he started off the song, he started off with a little bit more of a melody, singy-songy, and I thought that fit the song perfectly. But when he decided to switch it up into more of a rapper's cadence, I wasn't really feeling that. I didn't think the instrumental really needed that. I thought when he did that, he could have just ended the verse and Justin Bieber would have been fine, just him by himself. But overall, a track that I'm not too mad at, but it's okay. It's an all right track. Like, I might go back to it a few times, but I'm not really rushing to listen to it again. Like, I'm definitely going to rush to listen to All I Can Take, Daisy's, Yukon. And then you also got those, the album filled with Druski skits, and they're cool to listen to at first. They do get a little bit of annoying at times, because I said in my first reactions, Druski's like that friend that's so fucking annoying, but he's like really funny, so you just let it slide. He's like one of those like voices to me on an album. And he's being very playful with Justin Bieber, given Justin Bieber's being honest and vulnerable on here, saying that he's been going through some real life shit, which I really appreciate. He does show some vulnerability on here. Also, the lyrical content of this album is not as different as from the songs that I've heard of him on the radio. Just a little bit more of a there's more emphasis on the production on here because I feel like his vocals are very how do I say this? Not watered down, but they weren't as loud, and at times I felt like he was mumbling, so that could be a problem for the listener, and it was a problem for me a little bit in the first reaction. I noticed it on the first track too. It was like, yo, your vocals need to be a little bit higher. But I know that he was going for that kind of feeling. I know he was going for that little bit more of a down tempo, kind of more of an intimate feel. It kind of seems like he was making this album for the intention of people to be gathered around a campfire and sing songs that are very like intimate and personal, which I can really rock with, man. But then, as I said earlier, once you get to track 7 and onward, that's where it kind of changes. First place is not really for me. My favorite track on this album is track 10, which is Walking Away. There's just something different about that track, especially with the tempo of it kind of raising up a little bit and more of an emphasis on his voice and especially on the hook. I find myself singing that song very often. That's one of my favorite. That is my favorite song on the album. If you saw my first reaction, you know that I love that song. It's just really different. There's more of a distinction with that song compared to the rest of his songs. And as you move forward, right, 11 onward, that's where I'm like, all right, this album's starting to fall off for me. I see a lot of people liking the track 12 Devotion with Dijon. That was honestly my first time hearing who Dijon was. I think it's an okay track. I don't think it's like one of my favorites. I thought it was all right. Maybe it's the name that I'm not familiar with, and because it's a big name that people really enjoy it. But I have no bias when it comes to this. So like I'm coming into this with open ears, and if I like it, I like it. If I don't, I don't. And Devotion, I thought it was really cool, right? Like it's just like a cool track, not like cool as in oh let me tell my friends about this, but cool as in a nice first few listens. But after that, do I really want to rush to it? Not really. I've definitely listened to this album quite a few times now to kind of form my opinion on these songs. But as you go forward, Dad's Love, very repetitive. Therapy Session. I mean, again, Druski's that funny friend that is a little bit annoying at sometimes. Track 15, the worst song I've heard from Justin Bieber, which was with Sexyy Red. And I love Sexyy Red, man. I love when I go to the club and her songs come on because the club gets popping when she comes on. And I've been a big fan and advocate for her since she first came out. And I just don't think she was needed on this track at all. It just felt like Justin Bieber hung out with her, or maybe he was trying to hit to another fan base. It was like, you want Sexyy Red? Hop on my song. And I still to this day, I cannot finish that song. I've only gotten 2/3 into the song, and I always leave it because I just really do not want to hear it. I think it's a horrible song. Sexyy Red did not need to be on there. And even Justin Bieber himself, the song wasn't even great when he started off. It was just one of those songs where you could have just thrown it away and I would have been just fine not hearing it again. Track 17, 405. Again, nothing too crazy. As you go on, Swag, it felt like a play. The Swag song kind of sounded like if Playboi Carti and Lil Uzi in 2017 tried to make a pop song. That wasn't necessarily my favorite. I didn't really enjoy it too much. Zuma House, Too Long, Forgiveness. The more I listen to the songs, the more I don't want to listen to them again because there's nothing distinctive about them that kind of make me want to go back to them. So I feel like this album has a very strong start, but a very big drop off. And given that the album was 21 songs, right, 54 minutes, which isn't too bad given the whole like runtime of the album. 21 songs, when it's majority of them are similar sounding, that's the problem right there. Because the last songs could be the most beautiful songs in the world, but because they sound similar to the ones in the beginning, there's not much variation, and it's hard for the listener to differentiate if they really like that song or not. So I feel like some people will benefit listening to this album in shuffle and not listening to it in sequence to get more of appreciation of the song. And I know putting the album on shuffle is like one of those things, like it's a sin to do it. But in this case, given the lyrical content and some of the themes on it, there was no true like definitive story that makes you want to listen to this album from top to bottom. It just sounded like a bunch of songs that sounded really great together, put together. I wouldn't say playlist. Yes, still in album mode because of the skits and the interludes, but just not. It wasn't too much of like where like, oh my gosh, I have to listen to this album 1 through 21. I don't get that feeling with this album. I say put it on shuffle. You might grow a better appreciation with some of the later songs, but when you start out the album so strong, and then there's a big drop off, it kind of becomes disappointing. So overall, man, given my first Justin Bieber album, I would give this album a 6 out of 10. Great run in the beginning. Great run. And it's just that drop off is just way too strong, man. I feel like if you would have condensed the album, Even if he didn't have any of the skits or the later songs, this album would be at least a 7.5, 8 out of 10 because of how strong it is. And again, I love the percussion. I mean, not the percussion, the production on this album. It really is mellow. It's very intimate. It feels like I'm kind of sitting around a campfire, gathered around with my friends, my closest friends, and it also feels like a blissful summer. All things that like I really love. But when you go on 21 tracks, man, you fall into that trap of having some filler on your album. But hey, man, that's just my opinion. Let me know in the comments how you felt about this album. I'm very curious to know, especially from the true Bieber fans. I'm open to changing my opinion. If it changes, I'll make a follow-up video. But at the moment, this is what I think this album really deserves. Until next time, I'll catch you on the next one.